The college football season is upon us. Here's the 24 wide receivers you need to know when playing college fantasy football. All right, John, top 24 college fantasy football wide receivers coming off of our running backs and quarterbacks episode. Let's jump right into it here because we know the wide receiver position, it can be a tough one to nail in college fantasy football. Gradually.
Matt, when you're looking at college teams, obviously systems and schemes are at the top of your board for what you are seeking. But another item that is important and sometimes overlooked is game script. The Sun Devils are not a very good football team. The game script tells us they're going to be behind in most fourth quarters and second halves of football games. Elijah Badger is going to be peppered with targets. He was a four-star recruit coming out of high school. Last year, he finally popped 70 catches for 866 yards and 7 touchdowns, Matt. He averaged 12.4 yards a catch. I think he's going to improve on all those numbers across the board. I like Arizona State, and I especially like their passing game in the second half.
John, you know the rule on this podcast. We love Maction, and when you want to talk about negative game script, it's easy to go to the Akron Zips. So let's talk about their lead wide receiver here, Alex Adams.
I think the first thing everyone has to know about Alex Adams is he originally went to LSU. So, Matt, if you are recruited by LSU and you end up on the LSU campus, you have tremendous talent. But we also know that the Tigers wide receiver depth chart is crazy deep. Last year, 4 wide receivers transferred. 2 of them transferred, and Alex Adams became CFF stars. Trey Palmer's now in the NFL. Alex Adams is still on campus in the MAC. He's 6 foot, 190 pounds. And last year, he had 63 receptions for 856 yards and 9 touchdowns. Matt, I like Joe Moorhead, their coach. I like DJ Irons, their quarterback. This is a very good scheme. Alex Adams is going to feast on smaller defensive backs in the MAC.
And if there's one thing we like more than the Maction, it's the ponies. We're talking SMU here, and we're going to talk about Jordan Curley. John, the SMU system produces a lot of relevant fantasy football wide receivers. Curley, he looks to be the next one in that lineage.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing what the Ponies have done with different coaches. Right now, Rhett Lashley is the coach at SMU. He's starting his second year. But if you go back to this pipeline, Matt, and I've been watching the Ponies a long time, but let's just do the last 15 years. Emmanuel Sanders, Cortland Sutton, Cole Beasley, James Prochet, Reggie Roberson, Rashee Rice, all excelled in college and worked their way to NFL rosters. The next man is Jordan Curley. He started at Arizona State in 2019 and 2020, and this is common now. You're going to see it. He transferred to SMU. Matt, he is a speedster. He's 6'2", 189, and he just blows by people. He's an all-purpose player. He had 587 yards last year. He had 37 catches and 6 scores. He's very good, and now he should be the alpha male for SMU. Go get him, everyone.
All right, coming in here at number 21 is Luther Burden out of Mizzou. I think this is a really important one here, John. I feel like a lot of folks, especially in the Devy side of things, have been impatient with Luther Burden. Reports at a spring camp is that he's bumping into a slot, and that's a pretty productive position there in the Eli Drinkowich offense. So I'm glad we're talking about him here because I think he's got sneaky upside.
Matt, I do too. And I was reading a lot about Drinkowich and the system. And they've been okay. They're 17-19 in the SEC, and we know that's a challenge for Missouri. But he's moving to the slot, Matt. And to me, that's a good thing. He's 5'11", 208 pounds. He's a physical dominator at the slot position. He had 8 touchdowns as a true freshman last year. Only Quinshon Judkins of Mississippi scored more times than him. What I think you're talking about in the Devy community, He was a 5-star prospect at the top of the boards. And I think the expectations were that he was just going to come in and he's going to smash at the college level. But if you watch the Tigers last year, Matt, they didn't have a lot of production in the passing game. He still was a true freshman. I'll take 45 catches and 5 touchdowns, even though he only had 375 receiving yards. He showed me that he belongs on a college field. I like him a ton this year.
All right, John, coming in at number 20 is Derwin Burgess out of Georgia Southern.
Very easy with Derwin Burgess. Clay Helton. Former coach at USC, moved over last year to Georgia Southern, and he implemented his air raid attack. Now, 2 years ago, he got Kyle Van Treese to play quarterback, and he had been originally at Buffalo. Well, he's gone now, and what Helton had to do from the transfer portal, he brings in Davis Brin from Tulsa. Everyone, Davis Brin is good enough to run this air raid system. Derwin Burgess is the player. Last year, Matt, he had 7.
All right, John, hang on. You fully froze.
Okay.
When you were doing Burgess.
All right, let me see what my network's on. 1 second. Where is that? I should be all right. Oh my God. Sorry about that. I could start again with Derwin Burgess is the guy. Is that all right?
Yeah, I'll reintroduce Burgess for you.
Okay. All right, we should be all right now. I mean, it was on, so why don't you start again with Derwin Burgess? Sorry about that.
No, you're good. All right, coming in here at number 20 is Derwin Burgess, the wide receiver out of Georgia Southern.
Matt, it's all about Clay Helton. The coach now at Georgia Southern was formerly at USC, and he had very good offenses at the Trojans. Now he brings his air raid attack last year to Georgia Southern. Last year he had Kyle Van Treese from Buffalo was their quarterback, but he graduated. This year, Helton had to go back to the transfer portal, and he found Davis Brin, the quarterback from Tulsa. Brin is good enough with arm strength and with experience to run this air raid offense. The number one receiver that I like in this offense is Derwin Burgess. I was surprised, Matt. He played 715 snaps last year. He was on the field all the time. He had 58 receptions for 717 yards and 7 touchdowns. Hey, this is a 5 passing team in the nation. I'll take Derwin Burgess all day in any draft.
All right, and sticking in the group of 5 here, coming in at number 19 is Tyron Smith out of UTEP, University of Texas, El Paso.
Tyron Smith has been a very difficult guy to track over the last year and a half. If you don't know, he started at a JUCO program. He played at Cisco College in the past. He played at UTEP in 2021 and 2022. But in the offseason, Matt, he went to Texas A&M. Now, I think what happens, according to reports, Texas A&M, Aeneas Smith came back on campus. And I guess Smith didn't think he was going to have an opportunity, so he never actually practiced with the Aggies. He has returned to UTEP this year. Matt, he's their star receiver in the slot. In the 2 seasons for them, he has 104 passes for 1,609 yards and 11 touchdowns. Tyron Smith is a great wide receiver in your fantasy drafts.
All right, let's go ahead and recap. A Badger out of Arizona State. Number 23, Alex Adams out of Akron. 22, Jordan Curley out of SMU. Number 21 is Luther Burden out of Mizzou. Number 20, Derwin Burgess out of Georgia Southern. And coming in at number 19 is Tyron Smith out of UTEP. John, it's one last call here for our Rookie Big Board College Fantasy Football Seasonal League. We had a ton of commenters on the first video, but want to give you one more shot. So if you're watching this YouTube video here, all you got to do is comment to get entered in. We have lots of patrons that want to participate as well. So we will be doing a drawing for spots. You have about a day from when this episode is up. We're going to be polling here on Thursday of this week. So a day or two here from when this video posts. And then we will respond to your comment if you've been pulled. It's a free buy-in. It's a $100 payout. You'll be taking on me and John and 10 other folks. And any experience level, you're encouraged. Come play, have fun with us. We're excited to get into it with you. And John, I'm excited to get into this next group of wide receivers here, starting at number 18 with Antonio Williams out of Clemson. This Clemson offense, John, is not your old Clemson offense, okay? We have Garrett Riley here, and things are going to really open up with Cade Klubnik.
I think so. I'm a big believer in Cade Klubnik. I think he's very good. And obviously, I believe in Garrett Riley. And I understand there's trepidation. Last year, Matt, Clemson was 47th in the country in total offense and 65th in passing yards. So I understand why people are trying to stay away. But you know what? If people are staying away, I'm going to run towards it. And Williams is a great value right now. He was a freshman All-American last year, Matt. And he went out and he had 56 catches for 604 yards and 4 touchdowns. I believe in this young man. And Matt, he had 690 snaps as a true freshman. That is crazy. And he played in all 14 games. I'm banking on Riley and Klubnik to get this passing game back on track. And Antonio Williams is a great value right now.
All right, from bright orange to burnt orange, coming in at number 17 here is Xavier Worthy out of Texas. John, I think Xavier Worthy at 17 is a great example of buying the dip.
So I'm a little bit more concerned than the masses, but you still are getting some value here on Xavier Worthy. And let's go back to 2021 when he was the Big 12 Offensive Freshman of the Year. Matt, he was unbelievable. 62 receptions for 981 yards and 12 touchdowns. The speedster just changed the entire Longhorns offense. Unfortunately, last year, he had some key drops. You know, we had a new quarterback with Quinn Ewers. He also missed some times. He ended up with only 60 catches for 760 yards and 9 scores. But I think it's one of the things where you need to watch the film. Because if he makes like 4 more catches, Matt, he might have 3 more touchdowns and he might have over 900 yards. I mean, he dropped some real big plays. Xavier Worthy, if you can get him after round 3, he's a steal for you, Matt.
All right, coming in at number 16, one of my favorite wide receivers. I'm excited to watch him. I'm going to have the Arizona offense on as much as I can this year. It's T-Mac to Toria McMillan out of the University of Arizona.
Matt, I fell in love with the Toria McMillan last year. I mean, he was a freshman, 6'5", 203 pounds. And I know when people look at the big wide receivers, and we understand the NFL is changing and looking for this fleet-footed speedsters, but there's still roles for Drake London and these big wide receivers. And you might say to yourself, McMillan is one of those big-bodied wide receivers. Watch the film and the tape, people. He's got small man feet. Matt, I like his ability to change directions and attack secondary. I also like about him a real lot, Matt, is his ability to get open when the play breaks down and he has whatever the option is, however the offense is structured, if he goes deep or whatever he does, he's very good at that and he shakes loose. The Oregon thought they had him. At the last second, he transferred to the Wildcats. He was amazing. He's a 5-star recruit, great player. I love T-Mac.
All right, John, coming in at number 15 is Sam Wiglugs out of Ohio. Man, this was a guy, whenever he popped up on the DFS slate last year, John, we found a way to get him in the optimal lineup. He's such a consistent producer for the Bobcats.
He's one of the reasons I love the transfer portal. He was at Ohio State, Matt, 2019, and he only played 13 games in 3 seasons. I mean, just think about what the Buckeyes have put into the NFL. He wasn't getting on the field. So he had the opportunity in the transfer portal to move to Ohio, and he jump-started his career, right? He changed everything. He led the club in every major category. Catches 73, yards 877, and touchdowns 11. He was first team All-MAC. Do not be afraid. Sam Wiggles is a great CFF wide receiver, the former Buckeye.
Coming in at number 14 is Squirrel White. Yes, you heard me right. Squirrel White out of the University of Tennessee. I mean, here's the bottom line, John. You can't have too much exposure to the Josh Heupel offense.
No, there's nothing wrong with the Josh Heupel offense. And here's what's interesting about Squirrel White. He is slated to play the slot position. And if you've watched the Volunteers like Matt and I have over the last 2 years in depth, you know that Velus Jones and Jalen Hyatt played that position. Matt, they scored 7 and 15 touchdowns from the slot. And if you watch the Volunteers, they love to get those slot receivers on the wide side of the field, away from the short hash mark. They love to get them in one-on-one situations and just let the speed dictate the home run hitting ability. He's 5'10", 165. So I don't think Squirrel White's going to go out there and get 80 receptions. But Matt, 65 catches for almost 1,000 yards is very doable for this young man. I couldn't believe this in my research about a month ago. He was clocked at 23.5 miles per hour. And I will say this, on film, he looks like he's running that fast, Matt. Sometimes film can be deceiving. It is not deceiving with Squirrel White.
All right, coming in at number 13 is Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of the University of Houston. John, if you want to talk about talented players in a negative game script, I don't know, man. 90% of his snaps might come in a negative game script this year.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting with the Cougars because you have changeover at the quarterback. Clayton Tune is not there. But they did bring in Donovan Smith, and I'm not the biggest Donovan Smith guy out of Texas Tech, but he's got a lot of experience, he's got a lot of athleticism, and he's got a big arm. Well, I'm banking on Dana Holgerson's system here. It's been incredibly productive over the years. Last year, they were 8th in the nation in passing yards at 314 yards per game. Golden played in 11 games as a true freshman. He had 584 yards receiving and 7 touchdowns, which were both records for the Cougars. I like him here despite the turnover because I'll bank on the coach with the game script, Matt. They might be playing from behind a lot in the second half.
All right, time for a recap here. Starting at number 18 with Antonio Williams out of Clemson. 17, Xavier Worthy out of Texas. 16, Toria McMillan out of Arizona. Number 15, Sam Wiggles out of Ohio. Number 14, Squirrel White out of the University of Tennessee. And coming in at number 13 is Matthew Golden. John, coming up this weekend on Saturday, August 11th. Did I get the date right? 12th. On Saturday, August 12th, will be a live stream of the College Fantasy Football Kings Classic Expert Draft. Folks from around the country, they will be live in Ohio. It will be live streamed here on the Rookie Big Board. Me and John will be hosting it. You'll get live access as the experts are making their picks. We're going to come on. They're going to interview. We're going to talk through our draft strategy. We're going to analyze it. It is always one of our most fun videos of the year. It's also always one of our most viewed college fantasy football videos of the year. So make sure you're subscribed to the Rookie Big Board and make sure you jump on for a live stream at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern time on Saturday, August 12th. All right, let's get into it here. Speaking of 12, number 12 in the rankings here is Antoine Juice Wells out of the University of South Carolina. If you're not familiar with Juice Wells after last year, you're going to become familiar with him after this year. I can promise you that.
Matt, last year when I started to watch Juice Wells in more detail, man, did he pop off the screen in my book. He is a riser in the draft community. There are a couple people who really like him, level scouts. I have him very highly ranked in Devy also. If you haven't watched Juice Wells play yet, everyone, you need to put on some film. He's very good. Now, he took a very interesting route. I guess he had some grade challenges when he was in high school. So he ended up going to a prep school, Fort Union Military. And then he went to James Madison. And he was very good at James Madison, which is an FCS level school at the time. They're now at the Division I, but at the time they were FCS level. And he earned his way from FCS, Matt, to the SEC. And last year, I would be hard-pressed to meet people. If you said, who are first-team All-SEC wide receivers, I don't think many people would answer Antoine Wells, Juice Wells. He was All-SEC. He is Spencer Rattler's guy. I'm not giving up on Spencer Rattler. I think he's a very good college quarterback. Pro-level prospect, that's different. Last year, Juice had 68 receptions for 928 yards and 6 touchdowns. I think he dominates the conference again. I like Juice a ton.
Number 11 out of the University of North Carolina is Devante Walker. John, this is definitely in part, a lot of vacated production with Josh Downs off to the NFL, and we're expecting Walker to be the guy that steps in and takes the lead for the Tar Heels.
Without question, Matt, we are banking on system. We are banking on Mac Brown, the coach. I know they have turnover. Lindsey comes over at the offensive coordinator, so there is a little bit of change. But Mac Brown's still the coach here. And in the last couple years, Josh Downs, De'Ami Brown, Daz Newsome were all rock stars in college fantasy football. Josh Downs is gone, and they have an NFL level starting in May. Devante Walker comes over from Kent State. Early reports are that right now you have Walker as a number 1 guy. I feel pretty secure in that belief. He's 6'2", 195 pounds. Matt, he's very good. He's physical. He's big. I think he's going to dominate the ACC with Drake May throwing the football to him.
John, it's that time. Hit him with a meep. We're heading to UTSA, and we're talking about wide receiver Joshua Cephus coming in here at number 10.
This is what I love about college fantasy football. Every video, we have a UTSA player that we highlight. We are big fans of the Roadrunners here on the Rookie Big Board channel. And Zachary Franklin, who is not in our top 24 now because he has moved on to Mississippi. You could make an argument Franklin would be in the top 5 easy if he was still at UTSA. But what does that mean? Vacated targets and new opportunity. Cephus is 6'3" and 185 pounds. And Matt, in the last 2 years, he has had 158 receptions for 1,804 yards and 12 touchdowns. In high school, he played baseball and ran track and field. He is an athletic specimen. He is going to dominate the American Athletic Conference this year, and he has a great quarterback in Frank Harris throwing him the ball.
Coming in at number 9, John, is the best wide receiver that nobody's talking about, in my opinion. That's Oregon wide receiver Troy Franklin.
Yeah, I often wonder why. You get a little chirping about Troy Franklin, but there's not a ton. And Matt, when I was watching Bo Nix last year and probably watching too much Oregon Ducks because I'm scouting Bo Nix, I kept seeing Troy Franklin, and all I said to myself, man, is he good. Just a good wide receiver. Now, he's very thin. He's only 170 pounds, but he's 6'2". Matt, he can play the boundary. He makes plays outside of script. He's very difficult to tackle one-on-one, and he gets some yak yardage. This is one of the most explosive offenses in the nation. They were 6th in the country in team offense. They have the same quarterback, Nix, coming back. The only change is the offensive coordinator, and that's okay. I get it. There's a little change, but you have the same head coach, same quarterback, same wide receiver. The numbers are incredible. I expect Troy Franklin to be a rock star this year.
All right, coming in at number 8 is the X in the LSU offense. That's Malik Neighbors. John, one thing that a lot of folks might not realize is how much that passing game transformed over the course of the last season and how much Daniels and Neighbors, they really got their chemistry on the same page. I am so excited to see what those two do in this offense this year.
Man, I know you and I are champions of Malik Neighbors. One, we like him in Devi a ton. I've been drafting him in college fantasy football draft since March. Matt, I used to get him in round 6. Now you have to go in round 3, sometimes in round 2. And part of it is I love the film. When I really got to break down more film, and I think as other people began to look at it, you realize how good Malik Neighbors is. And Matt, I'm a believer in Brian Kelly. Let's look at some of the great wide receivers he's had. Michael Floyd, TJ Jones, Will Fuller, Equinemius St. Brown, that's the brother of Amon, Miles Boykin, Chase Claypool. They were all CFF stars in Kelly's offense. Last year I got burnt. I thought it was Kayshon Boutte. He burned me. Teams with Kayshon Boutte up in flames. You know, I had a couple best ball teams just gone, first round pick. But Matt, I can't be closed-minded. I have to look to the future. Malik Neighbors is the guy in the Tigers offense. I love him this year.
All right, John, coming in at number 7 is Jalen McMillan out of the University of Washington, catching balls from Michael Penix.
Woo, get yourself some Washington wide receivers, my friends. I go back, and in the last 10 years, Clemson, Alabama, and LSU always had 2 wide receivers. This year, the 2 teams with wide receivers are Ohio State and Washington. We'll talk about the other one later, but man, is Jalen McMillan good. A 4-star recruit, and Matt, he's 6'1", 189 pounds. He's a big player. He had over 1,098 yards last year on 79 receptions. He was second team all Pac-12. There are not many changes at Washington. They're going to be throwing the football. They have a great quarterback. This offense is going to blast off. Get yourself Jalen McMillan, everyone.
All right, let's go ahead and recap here. Coming in at number 12, Antoine Wells out of the real University of the real USC is the joke I was trying to make there. Number 11, Devante Walker out of UNC. Coming in at 10 is Joshua Cephus out of UTSA. Number 9, Troy Franklin out of Oregon. 8, Malik Neighbors out of LSU. And coming in at number 7 is Jalen McMillan out of Washington. You're going to want to make sure to head on over to patreon.com/rookiebigboard and check out all the resources we have available for you, including rankings, summer scouting reports, and 2023 seasonal projections, and full access to the Rookie Big Board Discord. But something that's cool and new, we now have a free version of the Rookie Big Board Discord. So if you just want to jump in there, try it out, ask some college fantasy football questions, the link to the Discord will be in this episode description. All right, John, let's go ahead and get into our top 6 here, starting with Jacob Cowan out of the University of Arizona.
If you weren't watching Pac-12 or you just weren't really looking at the bottom of the standings, the Wildcats had one of the best improvements in college football last year. They went from 111 to 5-7, Matt. Now, 2 players jump-started that offense, quarterback Jaden DeLora and wide receiver Jacob Cowan. Cowan had been playing at UTEP previously, and he had a very good season in 2021. He had 69 receptions for 1,345 yards and 7 scores. He makes the jump into the Power 5 conferences at 5'11 and 170 pounds. He ended up leading the Wildcats in receptions, Matt, with 85. He had over 1,000 yards and 7 scores. He is the real deal. He is getting some Devy and NFL buzz. If he goes out and has a 3rd consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, 2 at the Power 5, he's an interesting player to look at for draft. But right now in college fantasy football, he is a star for the Wildcats.
All right, coming in at number 5, there's no shame in being number 2 in the Buckeyes wide receiver room. It's Emeka Egbuka.
No shame at all, Matt. You and I will never forget the Garrett Wilson Chris Olave pairing in 2021. Right now, Egbuka is the number 2 in the Buckeyes, who obviously at the end of this video. But man, is Egbuka good. 6'1", 205 pounds. He is a physical athlete. He's a smooth route runner. He's everything that you are looking for from an NFL prospect and just from a college fantasy football star. Matt, he had 74 catches for 1,151 yards and 10 touchdowns. Most impressively was his consistency. He had over 20 fantasy points 7 times, and he surpassed 100 yards receiving 6 times. A former 5-star prospect. He's the real deal. He's going off the board in the first round, everyone.
John, the viewers are watching this show and they are shouting at their device. And they're telling us we haven't had enough Mountain West conversation yet. So we got to give the people what they want. Coming in here at number 4 is Tori Horton out of Colorado State.
And this is all about second-year coach Jay Norvell in Nevada. And he put together some impressive offenses in 20 and 21. He comes over to Colorado State, and Matt, his offense just did not fire last year. But amazingly, Tori Horton, it did not hold this young man back, Matt. He had 71 catches for 1,031 yards and 8 touchdowns. He was first team All Mountain West. They had a big problem, the Rams, last year in their offensive line. It was bad. If you watch Colorado State, their offensive line was bad. Only one player returns this year, and they have brought in 4 new starters from the transfer portal. If that offensive line clicks and just makes a little bit of an uptick in efficiency and pass blocking, Horton might be off the hooks great. I think Norvell gets this offense started this year.
All right, breaking into the top 3 here, we're going to talk about Malachi Corley, Western Kentucky Hilltoppers, catching balls in that wide open air raid offense from Austin Reed, who we broke down in detail in the quarterbacks episode.
Hey, if you love Austin Reed, you love this offensive scheme, you've got to love Malachi Corley. Matt, last year he jumped into the alpha male role. He had 101 receptions. That's right, 101 for 1,295 yards and 11 touchdowns. He was off the hook great. Some incredible numbers when you look a little deeper. Double-digit targets 6 times. 100 yards receiving 6 times. Twice he had over 40 fantasy points, and 6 times he had over 20. Matt, he was a Biletnikoff Award finalist, first team conference All-USA. He's a stud for the Hilltoppers.
Coming in at number 2, John, is Rome Odunze, the other aforementioned wide receiver out of the University of Washington.
He's the guy who's going to cost you a high draft pick, man. This Washington Huskies offense is going to be fun. In high school, he was the Gatorade Player of the Year for the state of Nevada. He was All-State for track and field in 2019. So he comes onto the campus as a highly touted recruit. Now, his first 2 years, he wasn't very good. So if you're an early breakout guy, you might have some questions. But the Huskies brought in a new coach, Kalen DeBoer. Kalen DeBoer got the absolute best out of Rome Odunze. 6'3", 211 pounds, Matt. And he plays small. I mean, he is really good. He is a skilled wide receiver with his feet. He gains separation. He can be physical at the catch point. Michael Penix is a great starting quarterback. This offense is going to fly. They were number 2 in the nation last year at number 1 at 369 passing yards per game. I think they're going to be in the top 3 easily again, Matt.
All right, well, here it is. Number 1 atop our top 24 college fantasy football wide receiver rankings is, of course, Marvin Harrison Jr. out of the Ohio State University.
Oh, what can you say about this young man that hasn't been said? What I'm going to do is start with, I do think Brian Hartline might be the most underrated coach in college football. If you don't know, he's been their wide receiver coach, and he played in the NFL. And while he's been at Ohio State, Terry McLaurin, Paris Campbell, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith, and were all highly drafted players. Now he's got 2 more first-round picks. I mean, we just mentioned they had Sam Wiggles on the team. He couldn't even get on the field. Brian Hartline's great. And you know what? You know who else is great? Marvin Harrison Jr. Not much to say about how awesome he is. He was the only thing I will say, I still can't believe he was a 4-star prospect coming out of high school. He's going to be a top 5 pick in the NFL, barring any crazy injury or something. I mean, he's unbelievable, Matt. He's the first wide receiver taken off the board, and it is well-deserved.
Leading up to this weekend's college fantasy football Kings Classic Draft, want to make sure to point out a big part of this is supporting St. Jude's. John has been driving the bandwagon for this. And John, the donations are pouring in. Tell the people how they can support this great cause.
Yeah, Matt, when I started the CFF Kings Classic, I wanted there to be a charity process in this. So not only are we giving people great information, but it's also helping children and families and children who have cancer. So in the link below, there is a button. Just smash it. Any donation, $2 to $10 is great. If you support Matt and I on all these videos, are free. Please make a donation to Children of St. Jude's. Matt, we've got almost $1,200 in 3 weeks. We have until Sunday after the Kings Classic Draft. We would love to get over 2,000. Please make any donation you can, everyone.
All right, there you have it, our top 24 college fantasy football wide receivers. Make sure to join us this upcoming Saturday for the CFF Kings Classic live draft. It is always a blast. We want to see you in there. If you have questions about any of the players or need some advice for your CFF draft, you can drop a comment on our YouTube channel or jump into the description and join the free version of the Rookie Big Board Discord. Make sure you're subscribed to the Rookie Big Board. Make sure to give the video a like. And as always, we appreciate you checking out this episode of the Rookie Big Board. You'd sit there at the computer, but you just couldn't focus. You know, it was just...
Hey, you know, I've been reading about it. Yeah, I mean, and then, you know, how about your daughter? Do you think she had anything?